Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Autopstream is back one more time in 2021. And then it's Tenet because we're going back to 2020. All right, Christopher Nolan. I just got done reviewing all the movies. I know Brian's reviewed them once or twice or 8 times. He just got done doing a ranking as well. CP, we got him dragged out to go see Tenet. And we figured we'd sit here and talk about the whole filmography with all you guys. Let's see who's here. We got Gary Sims, Skyman, Human Being, Dale Strunk, Mother Mayhem. What is up, everybody? All right, so Brian, I'm going to start with you. Who is Christopher Nolan?
He's some weird little eccentric kind of indie director. Does a lot of art house stuff that no one really cares about that much except people like me. No, he's arguably the best director working today. In my opinion, he is the best director working today. But yeah, he's not made a bad film yet. If you look at the worst film on his CV, it's still better than the majority of most filmmakers' best work. So yeah, he's a great British filmmaker who didn't go to film school but just learnt the trade.
Did he seriously not go to film school?
No, he just basically he's a bit of a technical whiz kid. Picked up a camera, started practicing with it, doing stuff, and then shot following with some mates over the course of like a year on weekends.
That angers me.
Some of us get born with a giant dick. It's just
I know. Oh, wow. And the scripts he writes, what the?
Yeah, so Christopher Nolan, he's a director that I didn't take notice of right away. The Batman films made me a fan, made me go back and look at his other stuff. And then obviously from The Dark Knight forward, pretty much the world, he had their attention. I don't love everything that he's done, but even movies that I don't end up loving, there's something about the creativity, the ambition that I always want him to keep going. Even if there's not a single movie that he makes from today forward that I love as much as my top 2 or 3, I know it's always going to be something unique, something different, something that's going to try to blow the doors off of what he did before, and I don't want him to change one bit. So yeah, so he's a director I definitely wanted to do a filmography for, easily in my top 3, top 4 directors for sure. CP, what is your thought?
Just before you go to CP, I'm already getting that itch from people in the chat. Dennis.
Yeah.
So this is one of the comments that like a lot of
this one. All right, everybody, water break while Brian kills Dennis. All right.
Come on, if you guys want to whip up a turkey in the meantime.
This is just something that gets my goat a bit, because a lot of people say this when it's like, he's a director where I think people have blinders on when it comes to him, no matter what he puts out. And it's like, you can just turn that around easily and say, well, I think because he gets so much praise, people literally get overly critical with him more than what they would with someone else's movies.
Oh yeah, reactionary, sure.
Yeah, to the point
they both cause each other. They both cause each other, honestly.
And they cancel each other out as far as I'm concerned. It's like, look, I honestly, sometimes, with the past few Nolan movies that have come out, and I said this in my review for Tenet. Sorry, CP, I've completely just... I said
what does my opinion mean?
Sorry. I said this in my review for Tenet, which is that I do genuinely sometimes go into a Nolan movie hoping that I'm actually gonna not like it, so I can genuinely not come off looking like just a total fanboy. But if I like it, I like it, and it's not blinders. I'm a very critical person. I look for things. He's whatever he does, it hits my notes. CP, I'll
Well,
back to you.
Real quick, because Brian chewed up so much time.
Credits are rolling and shit.
I would say he's probably the closest thing our generation has to an auteur. Maybe him, maybe Fincher. I mean, obviously, you probably have Tarantino in that bunch, but the guy knows what he wants. He goes out of his way to do it. There's stuff that he does that he gets funding for that I don't know. McG could not get the funding for half the stuff that Nolan gets hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars for. And the guy just, I wouldn't say he's perfect either. I would say he's got a really good track record.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good enough to entertain people and keep studios at ease that, at the very least we'll make our money back. And it's one of those directors where a lot of his films, they kind of reward multiple viewings. So
without losing artistic integrity as well.
Right.
One of them requires multiple viewings. All right. So yes, we got our takes on the man himself. Now let's start from the beginning. We have Following. This was his first feature. I believe it's just over an hour long, right, Brian? Or it's just under an hour long. It's not full feature.
70. It's about 70 minutes.
Yeah, about 70 minutes. So this was his first film. He made it, like Brian was saying earlier, just kind of on the weekends with some friends, piecing it together over time. It's kind of his forgotten film in a lot of ways, because the movie we'll talk about next is usually held as his first feature film. This is a movie that I had not seen until this year, preparing for my reviews and everything. As you can see, our little rankings there, I had it as 10 out of 11. Brian's got it at the bottom. CP has yet to see it, so we got a question mark. If I'm a betting man, I would say that it's probably going to be 11 for him as well. And that's not an insult to the film.
No.
When you're talking about movies like this, and you say that Following is his worst, what you really mean is his least best.
Right.
Because it's kind of the analogy that I used in my ranking was that Following is kind of bringing a toothpick to a gunfight in this filmography. You get the guy who, your narrator, your protagonist, he gets this kind of compulsive need to just follow people around, and he ends up following the wrong guy. This guy named Cobb. Cobb knows he's there. He draws him into what he does, which is essentially breaks into people's houses and doesn't really steal anything, but just does something in the room, or just leaves it knowing that it's been broken in, just to disturb the comfort of these people's lives and to change who they are, change how they think about things, maybe leave a pair of panties in the guy's, pocket so that his girlfriend sees it. Just small little things just to screw with people. And it's an interesting movie. It's not a movie that I think I'd rewatch a whole lot, but you see all of the early Nolan greatness here. You see the script, you see the non-linear storytelling that's kind of become a Nolan, a thing that he does in most of his movies. And like Brian's probably going to explain, possibly some inspiration for movies that he does later on. So Brian, I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a weird one, Following, because it's clearly if you threw a budget at this thing, then I think it would be a much better movie. And I do think you have to judge it on those terms. The fact that, this is self-funded. This is just something that was shot by mates. Like, I've made films. I made short films and stuff. And if I could make a film like this, based on the no budget kind of stuff that that we do, then I would be very, very pleased with myself. And that's what it is. It is an absolute no budget. You know, when people say independent film, it often grates on my nerves because Birdman is considered an independent film, directed by one of the biggest directors in Hollywood, starring some of the biggest actors in Hollywood. It cost like 30 million to make, something like that.
They all gathered their quarters and tried to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, that's an independent film. No, that's not an independent film. I don't give a toss what he says. It's made by people who work within the studio system, even if it wasn't backed by a specific studio. Following is the very definition of independent. It's a bunch of mates got together, learnt the tricks of the trade whilst making the film, and it's just a damn good film. And its biggest sour point is the budget, but it expresses a lot of the themes and ideas that would go on to be the cornerstone of Nolan's work. Time, dealing with time, and just like our perception of it, and how our perception is changed by what you show. And the order in which you show it. And yeah, like Cody says, you could even think of Following as a bit of a precursor to Inception, particularly in the character of Cobb. So there's a character named Cobb in both films. And in both films, that character is built on the notion of someone who changes someone, essentially makes them believe that something that they thought of themselves, so that's really what Cobb in this film is doing. He's shaping this guy, he's molding him into the person he wants him to be by making him believe that he's doing it himself. So this guy thinks that he's following him at the end, at the beginning, but he's not actually. This guy has kind of twisted him and made him believe that. So yeah, so I do think that a lot of the ideas that Nolan would go around to express throughout his other work, it's all here in his first film. It's just not as polished.
CP, did you do your homework?
I can't wait to watch it. Not even my uncle had it, so that says something, because usually my uncle has a lot.
Your uncle's slipping.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm intrigued to watch it. I mean, obviously, I like there's a ton of Hitchcock movies that I'm like, I just have to watch it because of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And still haven't watched them. So,
Yeah, I just got his little 4K Blu-ray set for that exact that reason. I'm like, time to watch the other movies besides Psycho and the Birds. Oh man! All right, moving on to what a lot of people would say is his first film, but technically his second, Memento. There's our rankings. I had it at 8. Brian had it at 9. CP had it at 7. Pretty close with that one. Memento is a movie that I knew about because I have very distinct memories of going over to my best friend at the time's house when I was like, 9, 10. Actually, this came out in 2000, so I would have been 10. And his parents were bitching about how they couldn't follow the movie because they had the VHS tape down by the VCR, and I was always a movie fanatic. So I'm like, what's this about? And they're like, fuck it. You don't even want to know. And they were just complaining about it. So I never really took interest about it. Didn't know who Nolan was. And then The Dark Knight, actually. I was on a Dark Knight high. I wanted to go back and look at what the rest of this guy had done. I looked up what Memento was. I was like, oh, it's that movie from that one time. And just looked into what it was about and immediately caught my interest. Ordered the Blu-ray, watched it, loved it immediately. It's a movie with a very simple story, but the way that Nolan decides to tell the story is what makes it complex and unique, to where you have the end of the movie is the first scene, and then the movie works backwards. And then you have like a beginning of the movie in black and white that moves forwards, and those two stories move towards each other. And where they converge is actually your climax. And it's a very unique and genius way to tell a story, because I've never done it, but I imagine if you cut this movie together, and I'm sure there's a cut out there somewhere, and just watch it chronologically, it's probably not very interesting.
It's like 10 minutes long.
It's a special feature.
Yeah, it's probably not very interesting when you tell it that way, but the mystery of the whole movie is kind of figuring out what caused these events, not necessarily a big reveal at the end of who the killer is or whatever. He catches the guy in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Or does he? So you have Guy Pearce, you got Joe Pantoliano, who I always love. No matter what he does, he's always somebody who's awesome. And it's a movie that I've watched 2 or 3 times. I've always enjoyed it. The only thing that stuck out to me this time, which I believe was my 4th time watching it, is that it is one of his movies that loses a little bit of rewatchability, because the trick that he's trying to do, once you know what you've seen behind the curtain and you know what's coming, I almost felt myself getting a little impatient with the staggering storyline this most recent rewatch, because I knew where it was heading. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but still a very cool movie. I've yet to see anybody do the same thing with a murder mystery story. I never say never. He might go back to do something simple like that one day. But it's definitely a movie that I think if you like murder mysteries, this is one that's unlike others that you've ever seen.
If you don't necessarily need murder mystery and you don't mind a foreign film, Irreversible by Gaspar Noé is quite similar. It's the same thing where the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. Very different as far as...
is it a turd, Brian?
I can't get through it. It's too...
The
too
cinematography
much.
in the beginning is insane. It's just constantly doing all this.
Oh, it's one of those on acid movies.
Yeah, but if I guarantee if you watched it backwards, it would be a little bit easier to watch. But anyway, I didn't fall in love with Memento right off the bat. I kind of felt like it was a little gimmicky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it took like a second or third watch where I was just like, oh, fuck. All right. Is there really nothing else on? And sure enough, at a certain point, through the movie, I was like, wait, that's not the tattoo. And Joey Pants has got the Polaroid for this. And I don't know. If it doesn't stick at first, I would definitely recommend somebody to give it another chance, because it's certainly intriguing. And like you said, if there was like some sort of reverse cut, it'd be interesting just to see how smooth it would be, or boring. I don't know what the word you use is. Brian, go ahead, steal it.
No, well, there is a reverse cut or chronological cut on the DVD actually. That as a special feature. Yeah. So you can watch it in chronological order, and it just doesn't work.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It's because the editing is so tied up with the psychology of the character, like it disorientates you, and you need to be disorientated because that's the only way you can relate to this central figure played by Guy Pearce.
I feel like you're watching the same 10 minutes plus something extra, and then you reset and then watch that same 10 minutes plus another something extra.
Yeah, and if you watch it chronologically, I imagine it's just a movie about a guy who's getting confused every 15 minutes going, wait, how did I get here? The fuck? Who are you?
It is. I mean, it's like it's. I mean, there's only a little bit on either end that kind of crosses over, so there's not as much repeat factor there as you might think, but it is just the idea that actually it doesn't work because the editing technique itself is what sets up a lot of this guy's memory loss stuff. So if you play it in chronological order, it is, like Cody says, just a guy doing something and then going, what am I doing? And it's just so it becomes a bit of a joke.
It's me at breakfast, for the record.
Yeah, as you in this street. But it's. I do think it's more than just a gimmick. I think a lot of people.
I didn't say it was a gimmick movie.
No. I didn't. I'm not implying you said it was a gimmick. But some people do. Some people say, "Oh, it's just it's Nolan playing tricks," and they say that about a lot of his films. Actually,
I was going to say that person says that about every movie he makes.
Yeah, like doesn't have enough heart. It's all intellect and no soul. And there's complete hogwash. I think a lot of people get tripped up on the intellect, and because of that, they miss the soul. And ultimately, this like Memento is a really touching story, actually, about this guy, who's suffered this great loss that ultimately He's quite responsible for him, anyways. But it's just without that editing trick, so to speak, I just don't think the character himself would be as engaging because we wouldn't relate to him as much. And it's that editing that does that brings us into his world, how he sees it. So, yeah, it's not just a gimmick, and I do think it's a film that has soul. It's just, again, it's an excellent film. I think that possibly some people still credit it as his best, maybe because they're down on studio movies and prefer to
that more independent touch.
Yeah. But I just think great film, but it's just not his best. It's still better than practically every other director's best, but it's not his best.
There you go. Memento. Now moving on to one that's going to cause some argument. So we have so Memento pretty much proved to the studios, hey, this guy Nolan can play ball. He can make a studio film. And for a movie that I will definitely say is his most overlooked and most underrated, regardless how you feel about it, Insomnia. Insomnia is a remake. I've never seen the original film. Is it a French film, Brian? I know you know. Is it
Danish? Wasn't it?
Danish?
Okay.
It's
Swedish.
Swedish.
Yeah. Whatever. Same.
One of those ishes. It's
Danish, Swedish, Norwegian.
So you have Insomnia, which is an American remake to a foreign film, where it's a murder mystery again. But this one takes the approach of not really being so much about the reveal of the killer, more so about the reveal of the morals of the cop and how it kind of coincides with the morals of the killer. So I had it very high. I had it at 3. Brian had it at 10. CP has it at 10, which is CP's lowest since he did not see Following.
Yeah, it should be noted too that my memory of this is foggy. So
mine was as well. I remember watching it way back in the day with my dad before I even really knew who Christopher Nolan was. It was just, hey, this movie where Robin Williams is playing a killer. And it was like, oh shit, got to check that out. There was like 3 movies that year. It was Death to Smoochie, Insomnia, and a 1 Hour Photo. We were all like in the same year where he took like this dark path. So Insomnia was a movie that I remember liking. I remember it being good, but for whatever reason, I watched it this time and I was just kind of blown away at how good it really was. And I think it was because nobody talks about this movie. Like nobody. People talk about Memento way more than they talk about Insomnia. And I don't know if it's because he didn't write this movie, so it kind of feels more like, if you can say director for hire when it comes to Nolan, this is more his director for hire movie where he comes in and takes somebody else's story and just elevates it a bit. But you still see this movie was like the beginning of when you start to see that Christopher Nolan cinematography where he's choosing certain shots, like some of the ones that I put in our little intro with the tape, or, you know, the way that he pans out and shows Alaska. But I really loved how this movie plays with your mind a bit, where you follow Al Pacino's character, who is a cop who's clearly good, but he's done some not so respectable things to get his way, you know, planting evidence, things like that. And he's being investigated. His partner at the time, it's known that he's going to give information. And in the midst of chasing down Robin Williams, who has murdered this girl in Alaska, he accidentally shoots his partner and kills him. And the only person that sees it is Robin Williams. And throughout the movie, it's not only a really good cat and mouse game where you have this cop and this killer who knows each other's dirty secrets and kind of have to protect each other while trying to screw each other over, but the movie and the way that Nolan edits it really makes a good little journey for the viewer to where you kind of start to doubt whether or not it was an accident or not that he shot this cop. The more that Al Pacino kind of gets disoriented throughout this Insomnia for the rest of the movie, which is kind of his guilt overtaking him, it gives you just enough doubt and enough flashbacks and enough little images here and there to make you think that subconsciously maybe he was taking this dude out. And I just love how it plays with your mind with such a simple concept. So I ended up walking away and saying, damn, that's one of my favorite Nolan films. And I don't think either one of you are going to have anything negative to say about it. Like Brian says, it's a really stacked ranking, but yeah, not very high on your guys' list.
Yeah, I just... It's really tricky because I've seen Insomnia actually a lot more times than I have Memento. Mm-hmm. It is more rewatchable, I think, certainly. I think the thing that brings it down a touch for me is just the whole serial killer cop thriller aspect. In that, I know what this film is coming into it. Like Nolan does a smashing job with it, but I know what this film is. Whereas when you come into Memento, you're like, whoa, I don't know what this is. This is new territory for me. And I think because of that, it just elevates it a bit more. But as far as this kind of film goes, the cop pursuing the killer thriller, it's top notch. It is. It's great stuff. And I like you say, it's a morality tale, and where the person that we're supposed to root for, as the film goes on, we're slowly convinced to root for less, but you can't help but still root for the guy. Like you want redemption for this guy. Well, at least I do. As the film's going on, you're seeing that he has made past mistakes. He's still making mistakes. And the more that he tries to cover up those mistakes, the more he kind of digs himself into further holes. And you're just like, just come clean, dude. And it's just, so you're just feeling that tension all the way through of, is this guy going to come clean? Is he going to take it to his grave? Will he make the right moral choice by the end? And yeah, it does make it a very tense, thrilling film.
And it's bright a lot.
It's what?
It's bright a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of the whole thing about him not being able to sleep, because it's so fucking bright 24 hours a day. Yeah. Robin Williams is awesome in that movie, too. I didn't even mention that, but he does a great job because he always has that likability factor that he's always had. Like, you almost want to give the guy a hug as soon as you see him. As soon as you see that scene where he's got his back turned on that ferry and they're going to meet for the first time, he just seems like this warm, gentle guy that probably got in a bad situation, and you kind of believe his story about it being somewhat of an accident, just like Al Pacino's. And, we have a lot more in common than you think. But then you just have these subtle moments where he snaps it, and just subtle times. Like, even whenever he gets off the ferry and he pulls out that little recorder, and it's just like, this guy's scheming a little bit more than he seems. It's just little subtleties that make you doubt him as much as Al Pacino. And it's a movie where I watched and I almost wanted to cry. I'm like, God, I miss Robin Williams. Super chat. Thank you so much. Your chaos, my serenity. I don't see the super sticker, but I'm sure it looked awesome.
just says 100.
Huh?
I think it's that 100 thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just says 100.
Oh, okay. I don't see it. It just says super sticker for me. But I'm on my streaming program looking at it though. So on YouTube, it probably shows up.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to that. All right, me and CP are going to take a break, and we're going to let Brian. So, Batman Begins. This is a movie that it's important in a lot of ways. It's important for comic book films. It's important for the legacy of Batman films specifically. It's important for Christopher Nolan's legacy, because this is really the movie that kind of really catapulted him into now A-list director. Not that he didn't have A-list talent before, but this is what got him recognized. I had it at number 4. Brian's got it at number 2. CP's got it at number 5. I remember when this movie came out, back in the day when comic book movies had a big negative stigma, and especially Batman movies. Everybody just, anytime you said Batman, immediately you hear Batman and Robin. And that was the taste of Batman films for then and always. And then this trailer starts playing. It looks a little bit more serious. It's, the racist guy from the Shaft movie is going to play Batman. I'm curious how this is going to be. And I went to go see it with my dad, and I was just like, holy shit, that was a kick-ass Batman movie. It's over. The streak is over. And little did we know how much this movie played a part with, a lot of movies that 3 or 4 years there, like Spider-Man, X-Men, and movies that are really just starting to kind of shape in a new direction what comic book films could be. And this, even though I do go back and forth between this and The Dark Knight, this, as of right now, I could say pretty confidently is my favorite Batman film, because when I watch a Batman movie, I really like it to be centric on Batman. I'm there for him. I love the villains. He's got the best, rogues gallery out there, but I like when his villains complement the movie. we'll get into it more. I feel like the villains kind of steal the show a bit in the next two. But this one, I love the origin. I love the way that it does the origin story with his nonlinear storytelling, to where, you know, you see certain events as a child, and then all of a sudden now he's in prison. You don't understand what's going on. And then he makes his way back to Gotham, and then it shows how he left Gotham. And it's just a very cool way to show how he became Batman without the typical, all right, my mom and dad got shot, I grew up, the next scene I get a bat suit. And I love the villains, Ra's al Ghul. I love the early beginnings of Scarecrow, who becomes a recurring villain in all three of the movies. Very little negative to say about it, honestly. The only thing that ever bugs me about this movie is I always get annoyed when you get to that scene and everybody acts like, not everybody, but a lot of people hold true that he did not kill Ra's al Ghul. And it's like, he did. I don't have to save you. It's like, just own it, dude. You killed him. Come on. But tiny little gripe. Otherwise, I love Batman Begins.
Semantics.
Yes, exactly. CP, let's start with you.
Well, this is the perfect movie for people who say things like, well, how would he be able to train and get in so much good shape if he's rich and blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the first act of Batman Begins that shows you exactly how he gets in shape and how he's able to hide in dark and, you know, fucking manage to whatever. They show you exactly how he's able to be Batman, and that's quite it's quite entertaining, believe it or not. I never thought, if you told me, yeah, you're gonna watch Batman do like martial arts and stuff, I'd have been like, what? No. But the way they covered it, it was really, really, really interesting. If there's a complaint on my end, sure, Katie Holmes isn't the best.
I've never gotten the criticism of her. That's I've never understood it.
I was just gonna say, you know what? Why shift it? It's not like she ruined Batman Begins.
I didn't even think she was bad. I thought her chemistry with Christian Bale was good.
Yeah. I actually thought the scene where she slaps him in the face in the car was really well done. Yeah. I believed her in that moment. I've never understood the criticism for Katie Holmes in that film.
I buy her as fragile a bit more too. I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything, but
I think if she hadn't been associated with Tom Cruise at that time, I don't know if she would have been criticized.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, valid point.
But I mean, everything else about it, I'll roll the carpet out for Ryan to go ahead and run away with it. But you know, it's a perfect reboot, whatever, you know, reimagining, and it was neat. Unlike Halloween 2007, they showed us things that really helped answer questions about current Batman, previous Batman, whatever. We didn't have to see him go through some bizarre childhood, and the way that they set things up, and it was a constant throughout the franchise that was a driving force for Bruce for quite a while throughout all three of those movies.
Mark the time, guys. We got 33 minutes through a stream without it being pushed to Halloween.
Shit.
Wear the fucking dunce cap now.
Get in the corner.
Yeah. AC off. You don't deserve AC.
I don't know why I said it by name, but we had to have a pearl necklace, of course. But you know.
That's okay. I was going to bring up Halloween in a movie later on, so at least now I could say you did it first, and now I'm just riding your coattails. Brian, take it away. Why is it the best thing ever?
It's not the best thing ever. It's just, look, on an objective level, it probably isn't Nolan's number 2 best movie. Inception probably is a better movie. on an objective level, but I bring a hell of a lot of subjectivity to this because I'm a flipping mad-ass Batman fan. I have been ever since 1991 when I first saw Tim Burton's first Batman film. That got me into the comic books. I really got into the character in the comic books because of that. Batman and Robin took a steaming dump all over it, killed the character in cinema for good. And then Nolan came along and just did this resurrection, and he put on screen the Batman I'd always wanted to see on screen. It was just I remember sitting there for the first time watching this film and thinking, blimey, it's just, you couldn't get better than that. It was just, and it was just, the fanboy child in me that gets so excited about all the things that are Batman. Watching that film is just, you can't measure that kind of subjective experience against objectivity.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so, like, not to give the game away for anyone who hasn't seen my ranking, but the Dark Knight trilogy does take my 1, 2, and 3 spot. And that's not because I believe that they are genuinely the greatest movies ever made from an objective technical standpoint. There are flaws in the Dark Knight that I can see. I know they're there. There's some stuff that happens.
You're unique in that too. I would tell you that because I got the tongue lashing of that entire fan base for about a week straight.
It's idiotic. It's like people need to be.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's reinforced and
swear to me, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's like learn the difference between subjective and objective opinion, and be okay with it. Be okay with it.
Right.
Look,
you're still here.
Yeah,
everything's fine.
From an objective standpoint, if somebody wants to argue that Inception is a better film than The Dark Knight, I think they can make a damn good case for it. And objectively, I'm not going to argue. But subjectively, sitting in the theatre, having the best cinema experience of my life, just because of what it did to me from an emotional standpoint as a Batman fan, as a film fan, those nitpicks that a lot of people have that really bring the film down for them, because they only want to measure it in an objective level, they don't mean anything to me, because on a subjective level, I bloody loved it. So, and that goes, the same can be said for Batman Begins. There are certain things in it that when I look at, they're like, I know that's a fault. Like the way he shoots the fight scenes. I think the way he shoots the fight scenes in Batman Begins was purposeful, in that he was trying to show the ninja aspect of him. You don't see him coming. And I think certainly across the trilogy, the fight sequences change. He adapts the way he shoots the fight scenes. But yeah, that's one bugbear I have with Batman Begins. But I don't care, because I'm a flipping Batman fan, and that's a damn good Batman film. So yeah, it's just subjectively, that's why it gets so high. But again, objectively, it's still just a damn good film, regardless of it being a comic book movie. It's a movie that is very character driven. We don't even get to see Batman until 50 minutes into the film. Or close to an hour into the film, but you're so invested by that point, because actually they've made the central figure, Bruce Wayne, the character under the bat costume, be so engrossing, which is I'd hope what you would want from any film. And again, the exploration of a particular theme being fear, just coming on the back of, a few years after 2001, we were living in a time where terrorism was everywhere in the media. We were constantly talking about it. Fear was everywhere with regards to how we're going to get attacked, this, that, and the other. Ra's al Ghul in the film is a terrorist. It was again, Nolan looking at what is going on in the current times and dealing with it in a way that is actually timeless, so that, this isn't a movie that can only be viewed through the lens of that era. It still works now. So yeah, great movie.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up, but yeah, speaking on flaws. The fights are a big one for me as well. And it wasn't as bad until BVS came along. And then you see what a Batman fight scene could be, and you're like, oh shit. And then you go back and watch that and you're like, oh, okay, well, okay. Not as good as it could be. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on subjectivity over objectivity. I preach that all the time. So right there with you. Moving on from that. Another movie that I would say is one of his most underappreciated movies for me, and I think it's because it's in between the Batman sandwich. So I think after Batman Begins, I think a lot of people weren't really interested until the follow-up to Batman came along. And sandwiched between those two films was The Prestige. Very high for me. It almost took number one for me, and on another day it possibly could. I had it at number 2. Brian's got it at 7. CP's got it at 9. The Prestige, I remember renting it when I was in high school. And I think it was just the actors, because, it was like, okay, Batman and Wolverine are going to be in this movie about magic. I better check this thing out. And I still wasn't really on the Nolan train yet to where I recognized him as a name. I wasn't even that much of a cinephile, if you will, at the time. But I remember I watched the movie, and I loved it. It's the period piece side of it's always really intriguing to me when it's done well. But I love how it just really focused on the rivalry and the obsession and the sacrifice between these two characters that spans, like a decade or so. And you get all the way to the end, and it doesn't really, it ends in a way to where you don't really get punched in the gut necessarily, like it pulls the wool over your eyes. It punches you in the gut because it was in front of your face the whole time. And you're like, okay. And it goes back to that whole thing about that dialogue between Hugh Jackman and Michael Caine the whole movie about he's doing this. It's so simple. He's doing this, and Hugh Jackman won't have it. It's got to be something more complex than that. I don't want to hear it. And the whole movie he does that ends up being his downfall. And you as a viewer are doing the same thing because it's got to be something else. And then you get to the end, and it is so simple, and you're like, wow. Not going to talk.
Right. I mean, the opening dialogue is Michael Caine explaining the structure of a magic trick. And what Nolan is doing is saying, well, the structure of a movie or a story, a narrative, is exactly the same as a magic trick. And you see it right in front. I can't remember the exact dialogue, but Kane's character is literally saying, you see it, it's right there in front of you, but you don't want to believe it. You're looking for something else. And that's what you do in the film. So it's like literally the first line of dialogue explains exactly what is being done in the film. And
you get a little bit of that too from Hugh Jackman's dialogue at the very end too, where he's talking to Christian Bale about what the ultimate motivation for doing all this is, and he's like, it's the look on their faces. You can get them to doubt it for just a second, and it's kind of the same thing where you almost feel like that's Nolan speaking to you as a filmmaker. Like, if I can get you to believe this for even just a second, that's what it's all about.
Super chat.
Super chat.
Yeah.
Aaron Anderson, thank you so much, my friend. Christopher Nolan is better than Brian Spears. Happy Sunday. I don't think it's quite last year the epic Brian beard that we had, the protest beard. As many times as we brought it up, it just got thicker. But it's getting there. Oh man. Yeah, so the Prestige, it's a movie that I've grown to appreciate, to where every single time that I watch it, I like it more. I've heard the only really major criticism people have against it is that you kind of feel at arm's distance from the two main characters. You don't really feel like you get to know them so much. For me, it's not so much about that. I think that they very much embody those two themes that he's going for, which is obsession and sacrifice. And they kind of switch back and forth. And it's more so about, they kind of characterize each other through their rivalry. So I've never had that issue with it. And they're both unlikable characters by default, but that's kind of the point. And that's never detracted from my enjoyment of it. I think that's kind of the journey you go on with the movie. But, special effects, cinematography, all that stuff that Nolan suddenly just becomes a master at. I love the scene where Hugh Jackman just hits the floor, and that whenever he has the Tesla machine, he just kind of raises his arms as the curtains raise. I actually think that, oh my God, David Bowie. Couldn't think of his name for a second. I actually think that David Bowie gives a really good performance in the movie. And I'm somebody that when most people think David Bowie as an actor. Most people think Labyrinth. I always think Prestige. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much had no flaws with this movie. I think it's a masterpiece, and like I said, it on another day, it might be my favorite Nolan film.
Yeah, that ending really took it down for me. Yeah.
How many times have you seen it?
Twice. I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe
we might get into spoiler territory debating this, guys.
Well, yeah,
I'm
just saying, like, the way things happened towards the end, it was just like, oh, is that all?
So I was more like the first time I saw it, when I came out of the theater, like I was I was hooked all the way through. And again, that thing about people saying you're not really with these characters, I was really invested in these characters. I was hooked because it's like, you don't know who's in the right, you don't know who's in the wrong. They're kind of both right and wrong, and they both have genuine motivations for wanting to get one over on each other, and you really just want them to make up and just apologize to each other. It's just, but this game, this obsessive, compulsive game of one-upmanship, it just really sucked me in, and I was gripped from start to finish. And the first time I saw it, when we get that ending, when we find out what's really been happening, I was really disappointed, and it's because I didn't understand the film, which is that actually
it's possible that I didn't completely comprehend it. It's just the common sense switch in my brain was like, if you can do that, then just
yeah, but the point,
do a bunch of other things with
the point is like I say, right at the beginning, Michael Caine explains the magic trick, and he says you're looking for something that's not there, and that's what you do all the way through the film. So when he does the teleportation machine, and then we see those other bodies, we're like, blimey, this is a really elaborate magic trick. I need to know how he's doing this. You're not looking at what he's doing and thinking, yeah, that is what he's doing. You're telling yourself, no, there's something else at work here. What's he done? Even when we see all them hats on the ground, we're like, you're being spoon-fed the information, and yet your mind is resistant to it, because like a magic trick,
I have a lot of hats.
Pardon? Oh man!
I derailed. Airbag.
But when I went back to the film a second time, knowing what I was getting, knowing what that ending was, and picking up more on what was being said and shown throughout the film, I got to the end and I was just like, yes. That is perfection. And actually, it really kills me that this is at number 7 on my list, because it is good enough to be number 1. Absolutely, it is. And I've got no flaws with it, to be honest.
I don't argue that there's stuff pre-Dark Knight that I probably really should either rewatch or get around to watching. But A, I don't own them. B, my uncle's a little scarce on some of them, so I don't disagree. It's been a while, and my mind could certainly bend a little bit, is what I'll say.
Moving past just how the movie kind of pulls that trick off on you, I always get blown away the more that I watch it at how much you're already at a point where you think that these guys are just insane for the level of obsession they have over each other, and how far they continue to keep going to one up each other. And you feel like they're at their worst. And then you see the movie, and both of them in very different ways just blow the ceiling off of how corrupt they really are. And you see that Christian Bale has been living this double life, to where him and his twin brother have to share the same women. And, one person loves this chick, this person loves this chick. And when they swap to keep their secret, now the women are mentally screwed up, where you got Rebecca Hall's character. She's like, you love me today, yesterday you didn't. They have to share each other's children. They have to, he gets his fingers blown off. Then you got to chop the fingers off. You can't be seen together. Just like the level of your life is all this trick. And you'll just take anybody down with you to do it. And then you get to Hugh Jackman, and he's literally stepping onto the stage every night, never knowing if he gets to be the guy up on the stage getting hailed or if he immediately is going to die in this watery pit. And it's just like the level of craziness to walk into stage every night, knowing that you might die in the next minute, but it's all worth it because I'm going to up this guy. And it's just, every time I get to the end, I'm like, man, that's some crazy ass shit. We all got some rivalries in our life, but I ain't stepping on no damn stage for it. I'll tell you that. But
I think if I did have one criticism, it would be that on repeat viewing, because all those twists, it doesn't quite have the same emotional impact. Like, this is a film that I do wish I could watch again for the first time. I think just because you see those, like when you say that the line where she says, you love me today, you didn't yesterday, or whatever. There's a lot of stuff like that sprinkled throughout, and it is that idea of literally spelling everything out for you, even though you're not going to want to see it, so you're going to think it's something else. You're not going to acknowledge it because it's being spelled out for you. And I think having that trick of the rug being pulled from under you at the end, where you literally realize, oh, everything we saw is what was happening. You can never get that same feeling again watching it on a repeat viewing. You can only appreciate the trick based on memory of how you experienced it on your first time watch, I guess.
Similar to how I feel about Memento. All right.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, my friend. So we have The Dark Knight, the movie that, whether or not you say it's his best film, it's by far his most popular film. I don't even think it's an argument. And I have it at number 5. Brian has it at number 1. I think that's your favorite movie, period, of all time. So it's the ultimate number 1. And CP's got it at number 2. So Brian Lomax, The Dark Knight, take it away.
Just reiterate everything I said about Batman Begins. It's a subjective thing. Did we need another moral dilemma throwing in at the end with the 2 boats and the bombs? No, we didn't. We could probably lose that. So if you want to get critical, there is things there to criticize. But there are things in The Godfather that I can criticize if I want to. But from a purely subjective experience, this Batman Begins was what it was. It was just, it saved comic book movies for me, particularly Batman as a comic book movie character. So when all the trailers for this came out, they got me so excited. The Joker, that just the laugh, hearing that laugh that Heath Ledger came up with. It's just like this is going to make Jack Nicholson look like Cesar Romero. So it's just going to. So I got to see the film 2 weeks before it opened because I worked at a cinema at the time. Though the staff screening was at an IMAX. I didn't actually work at the IMAX, but I was on shift at the cinema at the time. So I literally had 15 minutes to get from my hometown of Warrington to the city of Manchester and get my bum in the seat when I finished my shift at 11:45 for the midnight showing that was in Manchester. So I broke a ton of speeding laws and goodness knows what other traffic violations I made to make sure that I got there for this staff screening. It was the best cinematic experience I'd had in my life. It was just the audio, the way the audience interacted with it, the way basically how you feel about Endgame. You said about, it's just sometimes you get that experience, and it is that thing that cinema is built for, that communal experience where
absolutely,
for whatever reason, in that moment, you know, and you don't need someone to lean across and tell you, but you know that everybody else in the audience is having the exact same experience you are. And you're all buzzing from it. And I've never had that before or since. I've had it to degrees with particular scenes or whatever, but for a whole film where everybody just sat there, loved it from start to finish, laughed when they were meant to laugh, cried when they were meant to cry, got excited. It doesn't matter that there are a few niggles you can find if you want to find them. What matters is that subjective experience for me. And there's certain things that I measure a 5-star film by, and one is the technical way in which the film is made, like cinematography, acting, all that kind of stuff. And this is staggering in that regard. Another is rewatchability. Well, I saw this film at the cinema 8 times. So and then the third criteria is does it move me in some way? I don't mean does it make me cry. A lot of people think that when you say, does the film move you, they're like, does it make you cry? It's not just about, you can be moved in many ways.
Get fired up.
Sure. Yeah, excited, scared. It's just like there's a whole gamut of emotions you can feel that would fit the bill of being moved. So this moved me in so many ways. It got me excited in so many ways. As a Batman fan, as a film fan, as a Nolan fan. So yeah, it is purely subjective, but that's why it's my favorite film of all time, because I will rewatch it again and again and again, and it will still be great to me. So there you go.
What would you alter about the two ferries?
I'd say we don't need to see the people on board the ferries. I don't think we need to see their decision-making process. I think all we need to know is there is a bomb on the ferries and they each have a switch. And then the fact that the ferries don't blow, neither one of them blows up by the appointed time, is enough to say that these people didn't choose to blow them up at the point.
Would have added more tension too, because you would have been waiting for the Joker to be proven right in that scene, whenever he's like, "Here we go," and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen, and you realize Batman's won. Yeah,
it adds screen time unnecessarily, I think.
What's the meanwhile back at the ranch scene when Two-Face has the family of Gordon? What's the parallel scene to that?
Joker taking down or Batman taking down the Joker, and then if I'm not mistaken, I think he's fighting the Joker at the same time that Gordon is being drawn to his family, and then after it's all said and done, Joker says, I gave, madness takes a little push, and then he goes to try to find out where the hell Harvey Dent is. At the same time, they kind of converge. If I remember correctly.
For some reason, I thought the ferry scene and Two-Face, those two things were happening at the same time. And the combination of the score, like you brought up earlier, technically speaking, everything that happens in that scene with Two-Face is just so moving, like you said, Brian, moving. The score is so perfect and touches the notes that should be touched. And when Two-Face has Gordon's son, and he's Chief Gordon says, don't hurt him, hurt me, and he says, I'm about to, before he flips the coin, and the music cue during that is just so perfect, and it's I got a little goosebumps during that moment. It was just like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm gonna hurt you, all right? I'm gonna kill your kid.
Yeah, and another thing that don't really get mentioned that much is that this is a film in which the villain wins. The Joker wins. His whole modus operandi is to get Batman to break his one rule, which is to kill. And despite the fact that, as Cody's pointed out, he's already done that in Batman Begins. He
Batman v Superman.
Yeah, he puts Batman in a position where he has to kill Harvey Dent. He loses.
Yeah.
And so. And then the Dark Knight Rises is dealing with all that, the fallout of all of that. So, but yeah,
I think that third act is incredible in the Dark Knight. Like for any aspect you want to talk about. All right, you know what? Maybe the costume design could be better, but other than that.
Yeah, I saw this opening night. This movie, whenever it was coming out, I was like Brian. This was the only movie coming out that summer, as far as I was concerned, and this is the year that we got the birth of the MCU as well. So I remember being at work when I worked at a hotel, and I would, the shitty internet that they had, I would load the Dark Knight teaser, walk away, and 5 minutes later, the 30-second clip would finally be loaded, and I would get down to where the little sound hole was just to hear that. That little laugh that he had, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be awesome. So I could not wait for this movie. When I saw it, immediately fell in love with it. Rewatched it. I saw it twice in theaters, but I've never seen any movie more than 3 times. So that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. Immediately bought it on Blu-ray. Like I said, it made me a Nolan fanatic. I went back and started watching Memento and Insomnia and all these movies, and over time, some smaller things have kind of shown their head as I've rewatched it, and mostly it's only really dropped in my ranking because of the loud minority of the fan base that just tries to shove it down your throat that it has no flaws and you should respect it as such. And I hinted at it earlier, as far as how the fan base operates, the loud minority of the fan base, this is the John Carpenter's Halloween of the comic book world. To where if you say anything negative about it, even if you're saying this is a goddamn awesome movie, it's in my top 10 of all time, because it wasn't number 1, fuck you, you're an idiot. And it's like it. And I knew it when I was going to put my ranking out. I knew, even though it was at number 5 of 11 films, it was going to be like, I might as well put it at number 12. And I got every single shade that you could possibly have of that negative fan base. And that's what kind of, I've always felt that the movie was slightly overrated just because of that. And it's not even really a flaw in the film itself. It's just a frustration to where, we've gotten, since 2008, we've gotten a multitude of incredible comic book films. You have the whole MCU. You have some amazing things that came out of the Fox X-Men movies. You got movies like Deadpool, Kick-Ass, like all sorts of movies that are just great. And I feel like you can never even have a conversation about what is the greatest comic book movie of all time without somebody slapping you and shutting you up and just saying, The Dark Knight, let's stop talking. And I just don't think it's that easy of a conversation anymore. If it's subjectively, like Brian, your favorite experience and everything, totally cool. If you can explain it, obviously. If that's your favorite, cool. But there's a ton of amazing comic book movies out there that I just feel like are always held in Dark Knight's shadow. And that frustrates me. But just on the film itself, fight scenes, fight choreography is still not as good as it could be. I feel like the Joker very easily takes the spotlight away from Batman in this movie, and that always frustrates me as a Batman fan, no matter how amazing Heath Ledger's Joker is. I always, and again, this is not the movie's fault, I always feel bittersweet in that final scene where he's hanging, because I feel like Nolan had so many plans for what to do with Heath Ledger's Joker in the third film, and then unfortunately couldn't do it. So I always feel like that's just such an odd place to leave his character forever, which is not this movie's fault, but it's just the way it is. And I always struggle a bit with the logic of the whole last 5 minutes with Batman having to take the fall for everything. I love the destination they're trying to get to, with him having to suddenly be the bad guy and have the whole city against him. But I always struggle with the logic of that, of, oh, so people got killed by Harvey Dent, so the only way we can get out of this is say that Batman killed him. And it's never really quite made sense to me. With all
what else could they do?
With all the chaos going on, with all the Joker and everything, it's just never made sense to me that was the only explanation, is this guy who's never done anything but save the city suddenly went bad in 1 second. Harvey Dent's a little harder to explain. But they didn't say Harvey Dent. They said all these other people that he killed. And Harvey Dent's easily explained away with, I don't know. We could talk about that and debate it for an hour probably, but it's never been a smooth ride for me in that last 5 minutes, even though I love where they're going. So I always willingly go on that ride, because with ending the movie with now we have to chase Batman, that's a great place to end the movie. It's just, I always struggle a bit with it.
The thing is, you have to explain why Harvey Dent is dead.
Yeah, I know. I know that side of it's a little harder to explain.
So the only way to do that is say that, okay,
he fell off a building. It's not false.
You have to say Batman has to take the blame for it, so that he can then take the blame for everything Harvey Dent has done as well. Because
Harvey Dent killed himself because he was so upset about Rachel being dead that he left the hospital, refused painkillers, and committed suicide in front of his two greatest friends, and everybody else got killed by the Joker thugs.
It was tails. That's why.
I mean, you see what I'm saying, though? I feel like there's just a couple extra things that could have been done. I get it. I understand what they're going for, but there's just enough looseness there where I always struggle. Like, really, that's the only thing that you could do is literally just blow up the entire system of the whole Batman team. I don't know. I feel like there was a better way to get there, but again, nitpick. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. It's not something that derails the movie.
But that's not fair.
Screw you.
Oh man. All right. So moving on from that, and this is going to be a fun one. Inception. So after The Dark Knight came out, the whole world knew who Christopher Nolan was and wanted to see pretty much anything that he did after that. And he gave one of the wildest concepts possible with Inception, which is essentially his take at a heist film with a little James Bond flavor in there, and sets it in the setting of dreams, to where there's this technology available where people can invade people's mind and steal information out of it. And the best extractor in the world is tasked with planting an idea, which to that point was thought to be impossible. I have it at number 1. Like I said, it competes very heavily with The Prestige. It could be number 2, but both of those movies are so incredible, it's hard for me to choose. CP also has it at number 1, and Brian has it at number 6. I remember when Inception came out, I was working at a skating rink in Savannah called Star Castle, and there was a couple of guys that worked there that went to the Savannah SCAD. I forget what the hell it's like the film art school of Savannah, and they were film students, and they had access they had access to a preview screening of Inception, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to that shit. I don't care if I went to fucking school or not. So we went to go see Inception. It was either the night before or the week before it came out, and this movie just knocked me on my ass. It was so complex and creative and exciting and beautifully shot, with my favorite score in Nolan's filmography. It might be my favorite Hans Zimmer score, period. And what I love about it is it's so intricate and creative, but very wisely, they give you just enough explanation of how the rules of this universe work to not paint themselves into a corner, to where you can easily follow it, but they don't explain themselves so much to where you can easily start poking holes in it. So I've watched this movie 7-8 times. I never get to a point where I'm like, plot hole, but it's cool. Like I watch it. I'm along for the ride the whole time. I love the emotional struggle of Cobb's character arc. That whole criticism you get about no emotion in Nolan movies, it's not in this one. So this whole emotional thing about I was framed for my wife's murder.
Bye, Brian.
Well, we'll see him in a minute, hopefully. This whole emotional.
Not that good.
Huh?
I said it's not that good, Brian. Come back.
I'm sorry when I said about The Dark Knight. Come back. We got a show to do. Let me. I'll keep going. If you can message him real quick, CP, while I'm talking, just to see how he's doing. This movie's flawless to me. I've seen it numerous times. I've even watched it looking to see if there was spots where it didn't quite come together for me. But the emotional struggle of his character trying to get home to his kids, and that his only motivation, and this movie's the shit. There's not really much more I can say about it. It's my favorite Nolan film.
Yeah. It's a rare movie where I've sat down. Usually I give one act. If I'm not into it after one act, I bail. And this was a movie where about 20 minutes in, I was like, wait, who? What's going on? So they're dreaming, but then they're dreaming, and where's reality? Who's doing what? What the hell's who's stealing what? Is this just for fun? What is happening? That guy just made chips. Is this the real world because he counterfeited chips right from his hand? But after I settled down, I was like, all right, so this is a pretty decent ride. And then eventually it just becomes this roller coaster ride. And it's definitely, I was going to say it's sort of non-linear, but it is absolutely non-linear when it comes to Cobb's story, because you slowly but surely get the reasons why he can't
go home and can't create the dream himself anymore, and
architect a dream or whatever, and you feel terrible for him, and you know it just pays off these little lines like when they leave from the flight, he's like, I can't do trains, and it's this little thing like, oh no, I know why.
Yeah.
And the third act is just action porn.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's it's intricate, and you have all these crazy mind-bending special effects, but at its heart, it's still like James Bond sequences. Yeah, especially at the end with the snow, dream or whatever, where they're kind of infiltrating. And I even love the whole emotional undercurrent with Cillian Murphy's character, to where very easily in a movie like this, you could care less. He's just the target. He's the mark. He's the guy we got to fuck over. Yeah. And at the same time, you get that's just enough information that he's got an issue with his dad. And they hone in on that. That's going to be our end. That's how we're going to manipulate him. And then throughout the story, as he kind of joins the team unwillingly or unknowingly, you kind of start to care for him too, all the way to the end where they more or less trick him by giving him what he wants, which is a moment of closure and solace with his father in this dream. And it's like, it'll almost bring a tear to your eye when he pulls out that little pinwheel.
I got a little misty when he found the
pinwheel. Yeah.
Yeah. The pinwheel. I was like, all right, well,
yeah. That was a picture he put on this nightstand. Like, exactly. So you get that, you get the emotional closure of Cobb whenever he finally has to let go of the projection of his wife. And even though it frustrates me to a degree, I also love the debate that the ending of this movie creates. It frustrates me because I feel like if you watch it a few times, it's right in front of your face, just like Prestige, and you should be able to follow it. But there's people that to this day will still ask, like, what's your thoughts on the ending? And to me, it's very clear cut. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to know the ending of Inception, just pause until we move on to the next film, or mute, I should say. But so you get to the end of the movie, he finally gets back to his kids, and he does the little top spin, and then they finally turn around, which he's talked about the whole movie. I almost saw their faces. I just looked one more time to see their faces, and they were already gone. And that's what I'm trying to get back to. And he sees their faces and immediately just runs out and embraces them. The camera pans and shows the top is still spinning. And just as it maybe starts to topple, cut to black. And the debate is, does he make it out? Is he still dreaming and he just thinks he's with his kids? Or did he succeed? And the whole point of the ending is not that question. The whole point of the ending is not whether he made it out or not. The point is that he no longer questions his reality. He accepts it for whatever it is because he's with his kids. The whole movie, every time he spins that top, he's damn near like in anxiety until that bitch topples. And this time he's like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm with my kids. So that's the whole point. But as you said,
also,
if you want, yeah.
Let me take over. He's always had the top is his wife's token or whatever the fuck
Totem.
They called it. Totem. The top is his wife's totem. His wedding ring is his totem. Mm-hmm. You can very clearly see there are scenes when he's awake where he does not have the wedding ring on, and when he's asleep, he does have the wedding ring on. And gasp. I certainly could be wrong, but
no, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah,
we were explaining the ending, Brian, for Inception, because it's always heavily debated. I had said that the point of the ending is not whether or not he made it out of reality. It's that he accepts his reality and no longer questions it. And then we had the 1-2 punch of the wedding ring totem explanation that if you really want to follow it logically, he did make it out, whether you follow that theme or not.
Yeah, I think it's purposefully left open to interpretation. It's whatever ending you want it to be. Personally, I'm an optimist, so I like to believe that he got out, won the day, went back to see his kids. If you want to be a pessimistic,
they're wearing different clothes too, aren't they?
Yeah, you know about the kids
clothes.
Yeah, the kid. Yeah.
The kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Overall,
dynamite drop in, Brian.
Overall thoughts on Inception, Brian, because you kind of dropped out right when we were kind of getting into it.
I think anybody who puts it in their number one spot, I can't argue with, to be honest. Again, it's subjectivity versus objectivity. I think the only thing for me that, like, the reason that I put it at 6 and not 5 is that because we never really get to see Mal?
Marion Cotillard's character.
Yeah. We never really get to see her as anything other than a construct of either Cobb's imagination or his memories. She never becomes a full person to me. And I get some people say, "Oh, that's purposeful." Well, it may be purposeful, but unfortunately, it means I don't really warm to her, which means that I don't feel the loss that Cobb feels, and I should. She's the bedrock of everything that that this journey he's gone on.
Well, in the beginning, you're not sure if Cobb's the good guy or the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't really know if the reason that he can't go home is because of something that we're going to suddenly lose faith in the character over or not. And I love the way that they kind of frame her too. I keep saying Bond references, but she seems, especially when the movie opens up and you're in Saito's dream in the opening sequence, I love how they very much frame her as that kind of typical Bond girl that has gone against James Bond, to where she shows up and it's like, "Oh, Maul, it's you again," and it's
just
I love that
stabs the girl in the stomach like, "Whoa, what the?"
Yeah, she turns into like a horror character very quickly after that, to where she comes in and she's like the Freddy Krueger that just invaded your dream.
But like I said in my ranking, it's that whole thing of nitpicking, where I'm forcing myself to nitpick in order to justify why I put Tenet above Inception. When I did my ranking, I had this at 6, I think it was, and Tenet at 5, I think, something like that. But and I knew people would be like, "You're smoking crack. You're totally smoking crack." And it's like, you have to subjectively make, what I feel. What I feel. I preferred Tenet. I was moved by it more than I was Inception. I look at Inception and I think it's just, from an intellectual standpoint, the way that film is crafted is perfected. It is perfection. Tenet, I watched, and I was just, there was something that in me stirred because of the journey that was going on with the female character in it. And so that's literally it. That's the only thing that kind of marginally for me puts Tenet above Inception. But again, objectively speaking, I understand why anybody would put Inception at number 1.
I just want to bring something up that's completely pointless and has nothing to do with the film itself. But if you watch Inception, the scene where DiCaprio and what's her name? Ariadne's her name in the film.
Ellen Page.
Yeah, when they're discussing things at the French restaurant. The market or whatever. I could almost guarantee that was one of the first days of filming, because there's such little confidence in her line delivery. Like it feels like to me that she's saying these things, but she doesn't believe what she's saying. Like she doesn't understand. Like I know these are the lines, but what am I saying? Just next time you watch Inception.
If you ruin that scene for me, I swear to
All
God.
right. I love the movie, and I'm just like, yeah, they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Don't you love when that stuff gets drawn to your attention and then you can't unlearn it? It's like, hey, did you know there's a dick at the end of Teen Wolf? It's like, oh. Speaking of dicks.
Hey,
let's move on to the Dark Knight Rises.
Is it really that low for me? Shit.
Yeah. Okay, so the Dark Knight Rises, again, just like the Dark Knight, the hype train was full speed ahead for me with this film. I was rewatching the movies. I actually called from work the day that we were going to go see it, and more or less ordered my little brother to watch The Dark Knight so that he wouldn't ask me any questions when we go to see the movie. So I could not wait for this. I thought the trailers looked incredible. I thought that the opening sequence that they kind of gave a preview for was badass. I was ready to have my socks knocked off. And to be honest, when I first saw it, they were. I thought that it was awesome. I thought that it was close to flawless as you could get. I thought that Bane was the shit. I still do. I thought that Anne Hathaway's Catwoman was awesome. It's epic in every sense of the word. It's dark. I mean, every direction that they went, I was like, man, this is a epic ass way to conclude this Dark Knight trilogy. Over time, the cracks have shown a bit more for me. I have it at number 9. Brian's got it at number 3. CP has it at number 8. And while I still appreciate the ambition that he was going for and just taking everything as big as he could, I still think that Tom Hardy's Bane is awesome. I don't get criticisms with him, with people not liking his voice and everything. I think that he's just a scary ass villain. I love the physicality of it. I mean, I remember walking out of Warrior and being blown away at how intimidating that guy was. And he was not even done putting on weight for Bane. I was like, oh, this guy is going to be the shit. You do feel a bit of absence from Heath Ledger's Joker. At least I do. I feel like when I look at this movie and I look at the story, I feel like it was written as 2 movies. I feel like there was a whole movie where Batman falls and Bane takes him down and dismantles him, breaks him literally, dismantles Gotham, puts it under siege, and then breaks the prisoners out of Blackgate. And then if Heath Ledger was still alive, I always picture the scene where Blackgate blows open and the Joker comes out, or they see the Joker, and the movie ends. And you're like, holy shit. And then you get to the 4th movie and it's all about Bruce Wayne coming back to take his city back. The movie feels a little overstuffed because
it is a little quick for one movie. Yeah,
it always feels like 2 movies kind of stuck into one. I do think that this is Nolan's sloppiest script as far as a lot of conveniences and things just having to make sense because they need it to be that way. It doesn't derail the movie for me, but compared to the level of perfection that he usually has and the meticulous details, this one certainly feels like the square pegs were shoved in round holes in a few spots. The fights were a lot better. The ferocity between Bane and Batman whenever they fight was much better than the first 2 films. And I always have a little bit of an issue, even though I totally love what they're going for, with the scene with Michael Caine where he finally sees him after months of grief and blaming himself. He sees him in that cafe and just nods and walks away because it kind of goes back to that dream that he told him about in the first act. But I always feel like it would have made just as much sense and would have been just a little bit more emotionally satisfying if he sees Bruce Wayne and you see them embrace at the end, because him as a father would never have been able to, bless you, him as a father figure would have never been able to just like nod and walk away and never see him again. Even though I understand what they're going for, but it's a small thing that always bugs me. But yeah, it's a good conclusion. But it is a little bit sloppy for Nolan standards, which unfairly to him are extremely high.
Well, Marion Cotillard did no favors with her death.
I didn't even get into that, but you know, it's very hard when you have a character like Batman and you have us crazy fans that know all of the reveals that you can pretty much plan. Like when you know who Talia al Ghul is And just her being in the trailer, people were already talking about, is that Talia al Ghul? Because they're going to bring it back. And so I feel like a lot of people that are honed into Batman lore, that reveal did nothing for them. And then it's followed immediately with Bane just being killed really quickly. After they demasculate him into being like a dog for hire, basically, after he's been this really intellectual, I'm the man in charge, I'm 10 steps ahead of everybody. He's just she's calling the shots.
Bang, you're
and
dead.
then you have the scene where that truck that has the bomb in the back and it has Gordon in the back trying to dismantle the timer on it. She goes over the overpass and crashes in, and it kills her. But he's fine. He gets out. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll bounce around.
Gordon's like, hey guys, I fixed it.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. It's a movie I enjoy, but I have a lot of issues with. What's up?
Are we gonna blow?
What's up?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that.
West Craven.
Scream. Oh. Okay, private joke.
Cody, you all right? Cody?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I got my phone started buzzing at the same time his was. And I was
wow.
like, oh, we're all getting pulled away from the stream. CP, quick thoughts on Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, I need to I've just you know what is my
Hey guys, take over for me for just a few minutes. I'm getting blown up, so something must be going on.
okay. My damn wife ruined my experience with Dark Knight Rises. My most recent time watching that, Emily is just a chuckle hut every time Bane speaks. Anytime he speaks, and she's just rolling, and I'm like, "What the hell are you laughing at?" She's like, "I can't take him seriously with that voice," and I'm like, "You're gonna have to leave the room because I can't watch this movie with you in here." So, I quite enjoy Dark Knight Rises. I could do without some of the stuff at the end. I feel it wraps a bow on the franchise quite well, unlike some space movies. Well, like there's there's a couple of things that are like, but you know, it's a Batman movie. It's a Batman movie where everybody came back. It's with the exception of Katie Holmes, but that was 2 movies ago. I actually wish we had Bane, because there are clips of Bane's voice from the first screening, and it was a little more toned down. It was a little more reserved, but no, morons need to hear words like, well, perhaps he's wondering why someone would shoot a man. We'll talk about the play. Are you purposely not talking?
I forgot I was on mute. Sorry.
I'm like, oh, wait.
Are you talking about how they overcorrected his voice and made it louder?
Yeah.
The 4K, look, I don't know if it's because it's 4K and all sounds are usually amplified a bit because of the quality. When I rewatched my 4K Blu-ray for my review, it seemed worse than it ever was.
His voice is the loudest thing.
It's ridiculous. It's to the point where, I haven't given everything. Not yet. Or perhaps we're wondering. And it was like, oh my God.
Take control. Take control of your city.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Quick note. We don't have to hurry, but we have to go a little quicker with the last few. My realtor is trying to get us on a phone call. I said 30 minutes, and we should be wrapped up. So yeah,
I've not talked about Interstellar. More than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Interstellar, I had a hard time with. I enjoyed it, just couldn't understand it. So go ahead.
Did you get your piece out about Dark Knight Rises, Brian?
No.
Apologies.
Go ahead. You just temper it, but go ahead.
There's no way for me to temper it. I I love it. I absolutely love it. Bane is my favorite comic book villain of all time when he is done right, which is usually by Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan. And I think that Nolan got him right in that sense. I think a lot of people, as has already been voiced in the comments section, will pick out certain details about his comic book character. How he's not the same. Well, he's not Mexican. He's not this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, but the Joker in Nolan's movie also did not fall into a vat of acid, and have a scarred face in that sense. His hair wasn't dyed permanently in that sense. He wore makeup. So on paper, that is not the Joker, but spiritually, the essence of the character that you find in the comic books is just 100% there. And that's what Bane is in this film. Bearing in mind that Bane has appeared in film before this interpretation in Batman and Robin, in which he was absolutely crapped on. They took Batman's, the only villain to have ever broken Batman at that time and turned him into a joke. So he had a lot to get over, and they just nailed it in this film. I don't get a lot of the criticisms of this film, to be quite honest. The whole, how did Batman get back into the city? There's
perseverance.
He's Batman, for crying out loud.
Let me bring something up real quick there to that one point. So you have Batman that has been stripped of all resources, that makes it all the way across.
All the stuff that's off the books, he's been stripped off. Okay. We've already been told in The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Rich bankrupt isn't us bankrupt.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Bruce Wayne makes it all the way back to Gotham City that's been under siege very quickly, gets right to the scene where Catwoman is. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely convenient, but you're the same man. You're the same man.
That have passed, remember.
You're the same man that says that Child's Play 2 is not perfect because they just show up at the toy store. So you got to give me a little bit there.
For one thing, listen. First of all, the Batcave and where all Batman's gadgets and whatnot are, and his tools to get him into Gotham City, are actually under Wayne Manor. And Wayne Manor is not in Gotham City. It's not within those broken bridges city limits. It's outside in the Palisades, which we were told in The Dark Knight by Harvey Dent. So he doesn't actually have to get into Gotham City from that prison place with nothing. He has to get to Wayne Manor with nothing. And he does so, and then uses his tools in the Batcave to get him into Gotham City.
And how far is that circle jail again?
We don't know, because we don't know where it is.
It's
so
it's a trek.
All we have to know is that once he gets out, all he has to do is go to one of his presumably many safe houses around the world. Again, we are told in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight of the many kind of storehouses he has around, like in China and whatnot. It's just, I just think it's one of those criticisms that goes really overboard. I personally, as a fan, can see how Batman would get in there. It doesn't bother me. It's not a nitpick that destroys the film, to be honest. And some people use
it's not for me either. It's not for me either, but it is worth noting.
It's just when people use it like it's a smoking gun for why the film is just.
That's people that don't know how to actually articulate criticism. It's the same people that say that, Dexter season 8 sucked because he became a lumberjack at the end. It's like, oh no, there was 12 episodes of shit you could talk about before that. But yeah. Uh-oh. You good?
Good.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we'll move on to Interstellar. Interstellar, coming off of the completion of the Dark Knight trilogy, he goes to space. I'm going to do a 2001 Space Odyssey type film, show my love for sci-fi. Obviously, with Brian being the sci-fi fanatic of us, gave it at 4. CP actually had it even higher at 3. And I had it at 6, which actually jumped quite a few spaces on my second viewing. Interstellar was a movie that I was very excited to see because I was on a Matthew McConaughey high, like all of us were at the time. This is when he was just like, every movie was one of the best of the year, and this one of the best performances that he's given for like 2-3 years in a row. Nolan going for sci-fi is something that I definitely wanted to see. The trailers intrigued me with the story of him going into space, leaving his daughter. When I saw the movie for the first time, I loved everything about it up until we get to the Rubik's Cube, fifth dimension black hole scene, which I'll get to. But I loved, again, when you brought up that people like to criticize Nolan about being an emotionless director, I feel like this whole movie was his middle finger to those people. Because it's by far the most emotional Nolan storyline that you can get, to where you have a father that has to abandon his children for the greater sake of Earth and really ultimately their fates, to go to space for this indeterminate amount of time to an indeterminate world with only so much chance of success. And they wrap this whole sci-fi concept around like this gravity shifting time, to where, okay, we go down to this planet, an hour is 7 years on Earth. And you think as a father, like, wow, okay, so I have to go down to this planet to maybe find what we need. And if it's a mistake, I just lost 7 years with my kids if I'm lucky. And as a father, which I became between my first and second viewing, that whole concept really got to me. And his struggle to get back to Murph. The movie lost me on first viewing with the whole third act, fifth dimension thing, where he was the ghost, and these people, whoever it was that's sending these messages, kind of allowed him to send stuff back to the past. It seemed like the Nolan levels got shoved up to 12 for that 5 minutes and then brought back down. It worked a lot better for me on second viewing, because I feel like they're just trying to get you to hone into the theme of love and the power of love, and him trying to get back to his kids, more so than the sci-fi logic of it all. And that, when I kind of got on board with that, it made a little bit more sense. So by the end of the movie, I ended up enjoying the whole package more, and it bumped it up to number 6, where before that second viewing, it probably would have been just above following for me. Anybody?
If I wasn't a Batman fan, if I wasn't such a Batman fan, this would be my number one. I absolutely love it. As again, like you pointed out, as a sci-fi nerd, for those who don't know, I run a science fiction themed Facebook group called Cine Sci-Fi, because when sci-fi films are at their best, they are my favorite genre, and this is just a movie that has weight, that deals, that asks big questions, and it has quite a lot of. I mean, it's obvious parallels to 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I also think to Sunshine, in that you got a bit of a third act twist that some people would argue changes the tone a bit, but I think is actually pivotal to the whole ethos of the film, of what it is about, which is faith versus science, and can the two coexist? To which the ultimate answer is yes, they can. You don't need to be purely logic based or purely faith based. You can have both. You can use science, but you can also look at it through the lens of faith, through love. And that's what Anne Hathaway's character is all about. And at the start of the film, we have this character played by McConaughey, who is purely logic based. He's logic driven. He wants to get off Earth. As far as he's concerned, there's nothing on Earth that's worth kind of sticking around for. It's just like, other than his kids, but he can't really see that. He's not in touch with that side of himself enough to say, actually, no, I want to stay, because he's a dreamer. He's looking to the stars all the time. We see that in his conversation with his father, played by Michael Caine, played by
John Lithgow.
John Lithgow. So it is this idea that actually this guy goes on this journey and learns that actually all the science in the world can't save humanity, because if you save the planet, but you don't have faith and love, then it's worthless. All that, that look into the stars and everything, without the love that's at the center of human interaction, it's all pointless. It's all worthless. So to me, it was a very emotionally driven film, and The three times I've seen it, all three times I've shed tears through particular moments in it. So
incredible
again,
score too.
Yeah, brilliant score. Hans Zimmer once again doing fine work. So yeah, love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
CP, you had it the highest.
Yeah, it's one of those. And listen, I don't completely understand it, so take that.
Fuck it, they're number 3.
There are movies.
Pretty colors.
Yeah. Ooh. This will look good on the surround sound. There's movies that the more I watch it, the more I get a grip of what's going on. I'll put this right in the same category as Annihilation. Annihilation, I didn't understand nearly as much the first time I watched it, but I knew I wanted to watch it more. It's the same thing can be said for Interstellar. The more I watch it, the more I'm like, oh, right, okay. And the only thing I feel is like a little nitpicky is he found the exact spot to drop a book, and I'll try to avoid
that whole sequence.
Yeah, that was just like, really?
A lot of people criticize the whole the celebrity cameo. I won't give it away for those that haven't seen it, but that whole segment there, and to me, that's one of the best parts of the film because it just like brings this whole human desperation thing into it. We don't have to get far into it, but yeah. Moving on to one that might cause some argument. We'll see. Dunkirk. So after he got done with Interstellar, Christopher Nolan said, I want to do a war film. And as you can see by me, it's actually my least favorite Nolan film. It's actually the only one that I would not give a positive score to, which is all 100% subjective. Objectively, gorgeous movie. Totally get what he's going for. It's just what he's going for just doesn't quite work for me. But Brian's got it at 8. CP's got it at 6. I first saw this movie in the worst of circumstances. I was moving from my apartment to this house, and it was the absolute worst job that me and Holly could have ever done in preparing for a move, because we only moved about half of our stuff the day that we had our U-Haul, and then throughout the rest of the week, I would have to make trips after work to get the last little remnants of our house every day. And this was at the end of that week. So I was already frustrated. I was already tired. I'm not really a war film guy, so I really just went to this movie because it had Christopher Nolan's name on it. And I really did not enjoy it. I appreciated what they were going for. I think that the story is cool and is interesting. I think that performance-wise, even though it's not requiring a ton out of the actors because it's not a character-based movie, they do well. Special effects, cinematography, I mean, all the technical aspects was incredible. And Christopher Nolan pretty much was pushing story and character kind of to the background and letting experience be kind of the whole driving force of this movie about putting you in the experience of war. He succeeded in his mission. It's just his mission just doesn't really appeal to me. So I watched it a second time for this review series, and my thoughts didn't change at all. I really hoped that they would, because Interstellar changed, and I was like, okay, cool. I was pissed off when I saw Dunkirk. Now I'm going to watch it, and it should be better. And it just wasn't. It's just not really a thing for me. I don't know how else to explain it. It's the most subjective thing that I could possibly say, is that it just doesn't work for me. CP, it obviously works for you. It's at number 6.
Yeah, I'm a kind of a big war, especially World War II. I'm a big war guy. It took a second to get used to the non-linear fashion in which this movie's told.
Yeah,
but what is it? The last 5 or 6 movies in Nolan's resume, they all have some sort of ticking clock element to them.
Yeah, this one quite literally in the score.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting to see something that the United States had absolutely nothing to do with.
Yeah,
and it was fun to see tension and just how close, because this is based on a true story. I keep telling Emily what we need to do is watch that Winston Churchill movie,
Darkest Hour.
Pause it for the Dunkirk bit. Watch Dunkirk and then finish the Darkest Hour. I don't know why I put that into this little discussion, but it moved relatively quickly, and I don't know if maybe the score helped, if the ticking clock element helped, but if there's one thing I kind of could have done with that was the boaters and the sun. Although I guess the sun, you need that for Cillian Murphy to get a grasp on exactly what's happening. So it then falls into a nitpick, but I enjoyed it. It's fun to see, not fun. Excuse me. I didn't mean to say fun. I realize this is based on a true story. It's interesting to see war stories that aren't about winners.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It's an escape movie more so than your traditional war film.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's more about the common man, because it's it's a situation that was saved or salvaged by not soldiers coming to the rescue,
regular Joes.
But just regular Joes, and it's a situation where in the darkest hour where we are losing, we actually find victory in being close together and kind of. What are you laughing at?
Not you. I put it on the screen. They said, "There you have it. CP has fun watching war."
Right. It always seems that as soon as I start commenting, you two start giggling. I'm like, what?
That's when the chat does their best shit. That's when the chat does their best shit. It's not my fault. Go ahead.
Sorry, Brian.
But yeah, it is about finding victory and loss, and the victory is that actually, even at our worst moments, that's when we can come together and show our best. But I loved it. My only criticism of it, because it is actually for me one of the best war films ever made, it would be in my top 5 war movies, is the very, very, very last shot, which is just so bizarrely edited in there. So you've got this. What's his face from that boy band? He's reading the paper at the end.
Oh shit! One Direction boy.
Yeah.
Harry Styles.
So he's reading the paper at the end about so he's basically getting a grasp on how the country feels about the soldiers, because they feel like they've lost. So they feel like they're going home as a disgrace. But then he reads the paper and gets the notion that actually, no, the people are supporting them. They're well behind them. They love them. And then it cuts to like a final shot, or what should be the final shot, of Tom Hardy standing at the burning wreck of his plane as German soldiers start to come closer and closer. And then it cuts from that back to Harry Styles looking up from the paper and going, and then it goes to titles, and it's like, whoa, it's just this really weird, bizarre cut.
I remember that. Yeah,
it's almost like something slipped.
At that point.
Something slipped in the edit and moved a bit of footage over where it shouldn't be, and it didn't get caught. But beyond that, like I say, just take those few frames out at the end. Just let us go to black on Tom Hardy. Then, other than that, perfect war film as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. All right, now moving on to the new guy on the block. We've got Tenet. I've seen it twice. I know, Brian, have you seen it more than twice yet, Brian, or do you
just twice?
Just twice. CP, you've seen it once.
I've had the luxury of being able to pause at times. So
Son of a bitch.
Whatever that means.
So CP's uncle runs the theater and he pauses the projector when needed. I have
Hey, turn it back. I need to see that again.
I'm lost. Start over. It's 8 minutes in. All right. I have it at 8. Brian has it at 5. CP has it at 4. So once again, CP's got it the highest. So Tenet, obviously, with any movie now, pretty much that Nolan has his name attached to, a lot of hype. And this movie was in the unique position of continuously getting hyped because it was the one movie that refused to budge off of 2020. It would move a couple of weeks. It would move a month. It would move a couple more weeks. And finally, if you don't count New Mutants, which we probably shouldn't. It was the movie that some of us that decided to go back to the theaters were introduced back to the theaters with. And there was a bit of magic attached to that. I went to go see it, and my first experience was pretty much all frustration. Again, with Nolan stuff, he makes shit look pretty. I mean, it looked great. The score was good. One of them, Hans Zimmer did not do the score for this one, so that was kind of surprising, but it was still on the same level. The action sequences are awesome. The concept, again, is just like, how's this dude come up with this shit? But I was extremely confused, and I was having a very difficult time following the movie, basically from the beginning all the way through to the end, which Brian had warned me ahead of time. He's like, you got to pay attention. And I swear, I walked into the theater and I was like, all right. And it just, for whatever reason, I just slipped in the first 7 minutes and just stumbled the rest of the movie. I used an analogy in my review that movies that have this high concept like this, that are going for a more convoluted storytelling, are typically like chasing after a bus, and you missed the stop, but you chase after the bus anyway. You're running, you're out of breath. Finally, it either hits another bus stop or it hits a red light. You get on the bus. Now you're on the ride for the rest of the movie. Tenet is that same situation, but it's a fucking 747. Yeah. And if you miss it, it's just gone and it's never coming back for you. And that was my experience the first time. And before I ranked the movies, I wanted to see it a second time. I honestly did not want to go see it. I kind of forced myself to, but I enjoyed it much more. So I'm glad that I did. I found that with this movie, you really have to pay attention to the espionage stuff in the first act, because if you get lost with that, and then the Nolan stuff kicks in, you have no chance.
Yeah. Because
then you're going to try to keep up with this, while at the same time the other side of your brain is trying to figure out why he's talking to this person to go to this person to get this thing. It's Nolan's James Bond movie. He said for a long time he loves James Bond. He'd want to do that. This is like his resume saying, "Give me a goddamn Bond film." And it introduces some time reversion aspects where people as well as objects move backwards through time. So you get to that, then all of a sudden there's stories that are going both directions you have to keep track of. If you're willing to put forth the work, or if you took enough Adderall to where you can keep up with it the first time that you watched it, it is a rewarding experience. And I feel like it's a movie that when I rewatch it, however many times, each time I'm probably going to pick up on something different. With that being said, I still don't think it's his best, just because even though I appreciate the ambition, I don't feel like you should have to watch a movie multiple times to get most of it, which I did. And I'm never that guy. I'm usually the guy explaining everything like, okay, dumbass, this is how it works. And John David Washington, for whatever reason, and I feel like I'm the only person that has said this, so I'm going to die on an island with it. As a protagonist for the movie, I don't know if it was a creative choice by him or Nolan, or if it's just him as an actor. I haven't seen enough out of him yet. He wasn't the most engaging main actor in the world.
I would say the reason that was because he's not completely sure of what it is he's doing. Robert Pattinson, on the other hand, is quite
charismatic and exactly. Right. He's the one that I was like, I want to go get a beer with this guy. But the main guy was kind of like, you're kind of boring. So that's kind of my thoughts on Tenet. See it twice, and impressive. Just not my favorite Nolan film, but I'm glad I saw it twice.
Yeah, red shoestring. Just keep an eye on red shoestring.
Yeah,
there was a thing where red shoestring popped up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not going to forget about that for the rest of the movie.
I wonder if this is going to come with the
sure enough, 45 minutes. I'm like, wait a minute. We didn't do red shoestring yet, so something else is up.
Yeah.
And that might have helped. I don't know. It like I said, it feels like it's in the universe of Inception. And again, just like Inception, for the third act, it's just like, are you lost? Fuck it. Here's some cars driving backwards on a highway.
I laughed my ass off at whenever you were talking to us and Brian was like, you have no chance with this film. Just enjoy the bang bang. I fucking lost it.
Third act, I'm like, yeah.
Explosions. That building blew up twice. Fuck yeah.
The bullet went back into the gun.
Oh man, take it away, Mr. Lomax.
Yeah, I loved this film. Loved it the first time I saw it, and it is dense, really dense. But bizarrely, I got it the first time around. But I just felt like I need the second watch just to put a few extra pieces into place and make sure that what I thought I got was actually what I thought I got. And it's a great film about fate. And about destiny, if you want to put terms on him, and about a higher power kind of directing us to wherever it is that we'll end up, and can you accept that? And if that's the case, is free will even a thing? And we see that in the case of Robert Pattinson's character. And I need to say stuff here that isn't going to ruin the ending, but he makes a particular choice at a particular moment in this film, knowing where it's going to lead. Mm-hmm. So it's right there is this notion that actually, even if your plan is mapped out, you still have the free will, so to speak, to choose to take that path and embrace it, knowing that you are being used as part of the higher plan. I'm really trying to skirt around the issue because I don't want to ruin things in the film, but yeah, basically that's what it's about. And you've got the central character of played by Washington, who he's the man with all those questions. He's the one who asks Pattinson's character at one point. It's actually quite an entertaining scene because Pattinson just wants to get some sleep, and this dude's like, all right, but tell you what about he keeps throwing a question at him, and it's just like, dude, just go sleep, man, just go sleep. And it is that thing where once you start to think about it, it's just question after question after question, but it is all geared around the idea of fate, destiny, higher power, free will, and where do they all meet, and can one exist without the other, this, that, and the other. So yeah, I think it's, again, like when science fiction's at its best, it raises great questions. It provides some answers, but doesn't hit you over the head with those answers. And this is a film where it certainly doesn't hit you over the head with the answers. It just raises the questions, so that on repeat viewings, I think you will be rewarded. So yeah, loved it, absolutely loved it. And again, mixing the intellectual stuff that Nolan does with the heart. I found that the female character in it, all the stuff with her, Elizabeth Debicki. Yeah, I gravitated towards her. I wanted her to win, to get out of the situation. I felt for her. I was invested in her. She was the heart of the movie. She was the piece of the puzzle that everything else moved around. And again, her whole character arc really puts into perspective for Washington's character this idea of, can I make my own free will choice here regarding this woman that isn't going to affect the fate of everything else?
There's also characters in this movie that you don't know if you trust them all the way to the very end there. So, that's something to be said too. I mean, when you talk about spy movies or films of the ilk, it's now what are you laughing at?
What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
I just read the parable.
Delayed but successful.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying. It doesn't even matter. Quality stuff.
Speaking of quality stuff, CP himself threw together us a little graphic here, giving us the broader scope, I guess, of how critics, quotation marks, have viewed the filmography here. And there's some surprising numbers here. I'm kind of surprised that The Prestige and Interstellar are lower than films like Following.
Yeah.
It's really
Metacritic is an algorithm for professional critics, and Rotten Tomatoes is just an algorithm for
YouTubers.
A popularity contest.
Who's hot this week?
And the green scores are the audience for
Guys, I totally brought Insomnia from 90 to 92. Fuck yeah. So with that being said, everybody, any final thoughts, guys, on Christopher Nolan, the man, the myth, the legend?
Just can't wait to see what this guy does next. I think I often say that the mark of a truly great director is someone who can hop into any genre and make it their own, and that's what Kubrick was great at. That's what Spielberg is great at. If there's one thing that I think is a niggle with Nolan, is that he sticks to a particular wheelhouse, which is the sci-fi, fantasy, high concept kind of thriller.
What do you want to see him do next, Brian?
I would like to see him do a Western. He's done a war movie. Don't give me that face. There's some really great Westerns out there. Unforgiven is brilliant. But I would like to see him do a Western, something like that. He's given us a period piece with The Prestige. He's given us, a war movie. He's given us a comic book movie. He's given us the thrillers, the sci-fi epic. Western. Why not? I think the thing is with Nolan is that even when he genre hops, it still feels like the same kind of movie. He sticks to that thriller kind of.
Oh yeah.
Thing.
And they've looked the same too. Everything since like Dark Knight has that same color palette. They all look the same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I don't mind.
No, I'm not complaining.
Yeah. I'm just again, it's that thing where if you're trying to find something, that's what I would find.
Right.
I don't need it. It doesn't shape my opinion of him as a director, because name one other director who doesn't have a single bad movie in his filmography.
Tarantino.
Hey,
Tarantino.
There's an argument there for Death Proof being a bit.
All right, we'll see.
Yeah, we're wrapping it up. It's gonna sound like a typical answer. I really want to see what Nolan could do with a traditional horror film, not like a slasher film, but I picture something akin to Seven or Silence of the Lambs, brought to you by Christopher Nolan, and I would be at the theater the day before waiting for it to open. CP, what do you want to see him do?
No, you literally stole the words. I was going to say Seven. If you could throw some sort of ticking clock element, because he seems to always do that.
The time killer.
Yeah, maybe
he moves backwards through time, killing people while you move forward.
And maybe the head in the box is still alive, and you got some time to. I don't know. You stole the title right out of my mouth. Seven. Let me see something like that from Nolan, because that would be incredible.
How about
Kick-ass.
7, 6, 5, 4?
I just want to see him release a movie it just says Nolan. There's no title. There's no pictures. Nolan.
It's coming. You paying or not?
Exactly. That image down here on the right, that's this next movie poster. All right, guys. Well, that is the Christopher Nolan Compendium. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It has been hell and high water trying to get our schedules back together, but we made it this time. Be sure to subscribe to all these guys' channels. I'll have the links down below once I get the this thing on YouTube and I have time to edit it and put the info in. But thank you, CP. Thank you, Brian. Anything coming up you guys want to highlight before we take off?
Oh, shit. Show business is back. We're back to talking about new movies on Monday nights
for now, and then you'll be on an 8-month break.
yeah. And then there's a bunch of movies that nobody wants to watch. That I have a backlog of 4 movies that nobody should watch. Those will be reviews pretty soon.
Brian, anything?
Nah.
On that note, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.